Now, media in Taiwan are reporting that US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi will visit the self-governing island as a part of her Asia tour. Pelosi has not commented on the possible trip, but there's speculation she could stop over on Tuesday night. The Chinese government says it would view a visit by Pelosi as a provocation and warned its military could take strong countermeasures in response. China views Taiwan as part of its own territory. A White House official said there was no need for China to turn the situation into a crisis. Well, let's bring in DW correspondent Zachary Lee in Taipei. Zachary, there is suddenly a lot riding on this. How sure are we that Nancy Pelosi will be coming to Taipei?
Well, many local media and the US media have reported that Pelosi will arrive in Taipei on Tuesday night. We can also see that Taiwan's armed forces enter a higher state of preparedness from Tuesday morning to Thursday. In addition, this morning, according to Reuters, several Chinese planes flew close to the median line dividing Taiwan Strait. Those could be indications that Nancy Pelosi is likely to arrive in Taiwan soon. According to one of my sources in the Taiwanese government, Pelosi is likely to arrive in Taipei at 10 p.m. local time, and she's expected to stay here overnight and meet with Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen on Wednesday. But again, there's no official statement made by the U.S. government or the Taiwanese authorities confirming Pelosi's visit. We will just need to wait and see.
Are people in Taiwan worried, Zachary, about Beijing's reaction? How closely are they listening to what Chinese officials are saying on the matter?
Frankly, Taiwanese people here are very used to the threats from China, so I don't see many concerns from the local people. However, China has made a clear warning of consequences if Pelosi visits to Taiwan. And Taiwan may really suffer from reactions from China to the trip. For example, this morning, China placed a ban on hundreds of products importing from Taiwan, and this will cause heavy losses for some Taiwanese companies. Local media has connected to China's ban to Pelosi's possible visit to Taiwan.
And how does Taiwan benefit from this kind of visit, keeping in mind that leading members of the Biden administration have made it clear that this is just a private trip?
Well, you have to note that Pelosi is second in line to the U.S. presidency, and she will be the highest-ranking U.S. politician to visit Taiwan in 25 years. So Pelosi, as a high-profile politician from the U.S., her trip would show the close relations between the U.S. and Taiwan. And this is the support that Taiwan, as an isolated entity in the global society, always seeks from other governments. So in general, Pelosi's visit will show the American people's support and solidarity for fellow democracy. So it's very significant for Taiwan, for sure.
Zachary Lee in Taipei, thanks so much.
We begin the day with reports of a visit that could spark a crisis between the United States and China. Multiple sources say that the Speaker of the US House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, will visit Taiwan as part of her current Asian tour. If true, this would make her the most senior US politician to visit the self-governing island for 25 years. The US doesn't officially recognise Taiwan's statehood, but maintains close, informal relations. China views Taiwan as a breakaway province and says it'll bring the island back under Beijing's rule. And the Foreign Ministry made its view of any such trip quite clear.
If Speaker Pelosi visits Taiwan, it would grossly interfere in China's internal affairs, seriously undermine China's sovereignty and territorial integrity, wantonly trample on the One China principle, seriously threaten the peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait, and severely damage China-US relations. It will only lead to a very grave situation and consequences.
Well, a few days ago, Nancy Pelosi refused to say whether her Asia trip would include a stop in Taiwan.
I don't ever talk about my travel because, as some of you know, it's a security issue. It's a security issue for every member of Congress traveling, especially abroad. But for the Speaker, it is an additional security issue, and for those traveling with me.
Well, the visit comes at a time of strained relations between Washington and Beijing, with each blaming the other for escalating tensions.
Don't play with fire. That was Chinese President Xi Jinping's message to his U.S. counterpart Joe Biden in their most recent talks. China claims the U.S. is dangerously close to crossing a line on Taiwan, with its messages of support for the island's independence. In May, Biden broke with years of U.S. policy by promising military support if China tried to invade.
Are you willing to get involved militarily to defend Taiwan if it comes to that?
Yes.
You are.
That's the commitment we made.
The U.S. says China is the one disrupting the status quo. Over the past year, Xi Jinping has provoked Taiwan with incursions into its airspace and calls for an end to Taiwanese self-rule. The historical mission of the reunification of the motherland must be and will surely be realized. Beijing sees the island as a Chinese territory, temporarily occupied by the political heirs of those who lost the Chinese Civil War in 1949. Since then, Taiwan has governed itself, running regular military and civilian drills to prepare for a possible Chinese invasion.
The path that China has laid out offers neither a free and democratic way of life for Taiwan nor sovereignty for our 23 million people.
Many in the West see it as a fight between democracy and authoritarianism. But that's not the only reason why the U.S. is involved. Taiwan is integral to U.S. strategy to check China's power in the Pacific. The Taiwan Strait is one of the most important shipping lanes in global trade, and the majority of the world's advanced semiconductors, used in everything from smartphones to cars, are made on the island. If China successfully imposes its rule on Taiwan, that would be a big blow to the U.S. and a victory for Xi Jinping. But he and Biden both have a lot to lose. They know a full-blown war could be the worst-case scenario for both their countries.
Let's take a closer look at this with Professor Elizabeth Freund-Laris. She's president of E-Laris Consulting and author of Politics and Society in Contemporary China. She joins us from Middlebury in the US state of Vermont. Welcome to DW, Professor. Why do you think Nancy Pelosi is doing this?
Well, she had planned a trip to Asia back in April, but then she had tested positive for COVID, so she could not travel. And so now is the time for that long-awaited trip. And of course, she is going to Asia, Singapore, Malaysia, Japan, and South Korea. And so she said that she would stop in Taiwan. As you know, we have very close unofficial relations with Taiwan. She has also said that she is taking this trip to reaffirm U.S. commitment to the region. Now, the problem is, if she doesn't go, she had said, okay, we're making this trip as a commitment, but if she doesn't go to Taiwan, then it looks like, what about that commitment to Taiwan, to supporting Taiwan? And so the timing of her
forgive me
trip...
for interrupting, but has she actually said... She talked in general terms about the US being committed to Taiwan, but as far as I understand, no one from her side has officially said, yes, we're going to Taiwan, and our reason for going to Taiwan would be to do this. She's outlined all the stops on her Asia trip. My question really is about, well, why has she put this on her itinerary, seemingly out of the blue?
Well, some people are saying that she's looking at the midterm elections in the United States, where a lot of Americans are critical of Democrats as being soft on security type issues. And it appears that the Democratic Party is going to take quite a drumming in the midterm elections. So some people are saying that she's going to show that she is tough on security issues. She is tough on China. And Taiwan, of course, is the hot button issue where you would indicate, okay, this is our commitment to the region. We're tough on China. I should be able to go. I'm the Speaker of the House. Taiwan is a democratic entity. We have good relations with Taiwan. Why can I not go?
Right. And we've already heard the Chinese Foreign Ministry promise what they called firm and strong countermeasures if this trip goes ahead. But here's Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian taking things up just a notch.
We would like to once again warn the US that we are fully prepared and waiting. The People's Liberation Army will never sit by idly.
Professor Laros, how concerning is this talk of army involvement?
This is very concerning, especially now that they have made it public, that the Chinese Ministry of Defense and Foreign Ministry have made it public. If Pelosi does, in fact, attempt to land in Taiwan, are they going to stand idly by? They cannot look weak in the eyes of the world either. And, China, the Chinese Communist Party has that 20th Party Congress coming up in October, and Xi Jinping does not want to look weak in the eyes of the world. China says we've had that 100 years of humiliation. That's over. The Chinese people have stood up. And so they are very serious about using some type of action. Now, let's see if they didn't use action against her plane, the next day, that evening, day down the road or something like that. They'll take more action against Taiwan. And that is, the Chinese, Air Force has been encircling Taiwan pretty regularly. They have gone into Taiwan's aerial identification zone several times a day now, forcing Taiwan jets to scramble to exhaust them. And so China has innumerable things it could do to Taiwan. It could make more trouble in the Taiwan Strait. It can do overflights over the island of Taiwan. So I anticipate that this might open the door for China to be more aggressive toward Taiwan.
And what about the Speaker herself? Is it unusual for the Speaker of the House to undertake this sort of foreign mission?
No, it's not unusual for the Speaker to take foreign missions. Now, no U.S. Speaker of the House has gone to Taiwan in about 25 years. Newt Gingrich was the last to go. And when he went, the U.S. and China were on very good terms. Right now, the U.S. and China are probably at the lowest point in their relationship since the normalization of relations in 1979. So the situation has changed. The security calculus has also changed. Back in 97, China's military was pretty weak, and it was not anywhere as strong as it is now. And Taiwan's military was stronger. Now, that security calculus across the Taiwan Strait has completely changed in the last 25 years. So the situation is much more testy, and it's much more dangerous militarily.
OK, well, we'll know in the coming hours. Thank you so much for outlining that so clearly for us. Professor Elizabeth Freund-Laros, President of Laros Consulting.